Mobile phones are literally taking over the world. 8 out of every 10 people have one, which means there's well over 6 billion of the things across the world. We're able to do more with the mobile phone of today as well. 15 years ago, mobile phones were strictly limited to calls and possibly text if you had one of the more expensive models. But nowadays, mobile phones can do so much more. Cameras, web browsers, games, social networking apps, to name a few, are just some of the features that come as standard on mobile phones today, with even some of the cheaper models having these features. Mobile phones are innovating fast, with new models coming onto the market at a rate which feels like there's a new model launch every single week, every time with new features and new ways to interact with your phone. Just think of your mobile phone 5 years ago and your mobile now. It's almost like taking a computer into your pocket. In fact, many people use their mobile phones instead of their computer, allowing them to be more productive with their lives, working whenever they're out of the office, to the point that it's like they never left. This documentary covers mobile phones and how we interact with them. More specifically, how those who are impaired enjoy the technology we take for granted every day. With the introduction of the smartphone, people's uses of mobile phones are increasing more than ever. According to a study on behalf of Virgin Media, the number one thing that people use their mobiles for is texting. The majority of people would rather send a quick text than make a phone call because it's so convenient. Unlimited texts? That's something that a lot of people need when they're purchasing a mobile phone plan. The second most common thing the average mobile phone user does these days is surf the internet. It's as standard of a feature of texting, with even the most basic mobile phones having some sort of web browser. Browsing shopping and social media sites, as well as using search engines like Google, are common to find out stuff on the move. How easy was it to find just how much the t-shirt you saw in the shop was online 5 years ago? Nowadays, you can just type it straight into your mobile phone's web browser. People also use their mobile phones to download and use applications. Most modern smartphones have some sort of application to allow the user to download apps, which can include nearly everything, including news, social networking, games, shopping, personal organisers, video sites like YouTube, and even loyalty apps, replacing your loyalty card just by scanning your phone when you're shopping in the real world. These features are absolutely fantastic. They're convenient, they're clever, and they allow you to communicate in new ways. But how do people who are visually impaired use the phones? Thankfully, technology is there to help them as well. Most of the modern smartphones have a built-in screen reader. A screen reader is a software application which simply reads out what's on the screen audibly, so those with visual impairments can effectively navigate their phone. This service on the Android platform is called TalkBack and is built right into the system.
Showing items 1 to 3 of 22. Showing items 2 to 4 of 22. Showing items 3 to 5 of 22. Gmail, edit box, tab. Capital H, E, L, L, O, below, H, I, delete O, W, power, O, T, T, I, N, G, H, M, Nottingham, V, I, C, T, O, R, I, Alerts, Ed Maps.
Apple's iPhone has a similar feature, which is called VoiceOver. Just like TalkBack, this reads out what's on the screen for those with visual impairments. You might think that an audible impairment is less significant to accessibility of the latest smartphone, but in fact it's not. With no thanks to not being able to hear what's around them and pick up the English language, same as someone with full hearing, deaf people leave school with a reading age of less than 6, making it hard for them to use written English as well as spoken English. For most, texting is difficult, and requires someone on the receiving end to be able to understand what is often a poor standard of English. We were lucky enough to head over to the Nottinghamshire Deaf Society to speak to Ben Thompson, who is a member of the deaf community who uses a mobile phone every single day.
Hi, I'm Ben Thompson. The mobile I'm using at the moment is a Samsung. It's quite an old one. And, it's fine. I use it for a whole variety of different purposes. I use it a lot for texting, WhatsApp, messaging, sending picture messages quite a lot, Facebook, Twitter. Sometimes I'll use the internet to get information about sort of sports events and things. Sometimes with the spell check is really useful, for example, or it rectifies the spelling, because English is very much a second language for me as a deaf person, so that really helps, and sometimes the grammar checks as well. It's a real big benefit for the deaf community, because it's aided communication, whereas before deaf people used to have to make arrangements and meet up at a certain time to be able to chat to each other, whereas now we can do it over mobile phones. We can make arrangements to meet up. You can say if you've missed a bus, everything's there. It's great, it's all in my pocket. It makes life so much easier. Well, if I didn't have a mobile, I'd have to be writing everything down. I'd have to, think how to spell words if I was trying to communicate with hearing people as well. My writing and my English literacy is not very good as a deaf person, so using a mobile is just so much better, because I can do it on there and it will, do the spell check and everything else. I mean, there are obviously lots of different types of phones, and a lot of deaf people use the Apple iPhone because of FaceTime and Skype. Particularly FaceTime, it's got a really clear, good quality picture for signing, and obviously as a deaf person that's my first language, so it's been the first time that deaf people have been able to communicate really, really clearly, being able to use sign in a mobile type context. So the Apple iPhone is definitely the number one choice of the deaf community. Yeah, in America they've had VIS for many, many years. And I know they're looking at seeing to get it set up here, but this is where you're able to make a call to a hearing person who doesn't sign through a sign language interpreter. So I would call the interpreter, and they'd make the call on my behalf and voice my information to the hearing person and sign back from the hearing person to me, so that I can have full access to the telephone system, the same as anybody else can. I mean, a lot of the deaf community now use mobiles, even a lot of older deaf people. And the impact it's had really is on the local deaf clubs, whereas deaf community always used to come to their local deaf club, like here, to meet up, because that's the only time that they could communicate in their first language with their friends during the week. That's lessened now because everybody's using mobiles, so they're able to text each other on a daily basis, keep up to date with information, so they're not coming to the deaf clubs anymore. Before I couldn't communicate easily with hearing people, but now I can just get my mobile out and type a message, and they, with the spell check and everything else, they'll understand it, and it replaces pen and paper really for me on a daily basis.
So that's a look at the world of mobile phones and how people with impairments are assisted by developments in technology. A special thank you to Ben Thompson and Francis Connor for interpreting. Thanks for watching the programme.